Yes, hello, good afternoon. Welcome on in. It is Alan here, the digital mentor from compassmedia.ie. And if you're just watching this on the replay, it's a very good afternoon to you. And thanks for joining us and watching us on the replay. Today, I have a fantastic guest, and we're going to be talking to Kris Ward. And it is all about winning the hour and winning the day and getting your time back. So without further ado, let's roll those credits and get this show underway. Yes, indeed. Hi, guys. It's Alan here. I'm back for another episode of In Conversation with Alan. And today I'm going to be talking to Kris Ward. And I met Kris a couple of weeks back, and we've just become so good friends. She's been on the podcast, the Social Media Talks podcast. Make sure you check it out. It's available on all of the leading podcast providers. Also available on the Compass Media website as well. But I was also on her podcast, and now she's been very kind to come on and come on to the In Conversation show as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Kris up, and then she can tell us all about what's going on. So, Kris, how are you? There we are. It's
Oh,
good to see
I'm
you.
great. Any opportunity I get to talk shop with you, it's a good day for me.
So let's just fix this here. That's a bit better then. There we go. Yeah, so it's great to see you, and thanks, of course, for coming on. And we've had some really, really good conversations. And of course, today we are going to be talking all about winning the hour and winning the day and getting some time back for yourself, which is what I'm looking forward to sharing with people, because we've had so many conversations about it, and it's so interesting. But before we go any further, maybe you might give us a little bit of a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, okay. So I never know how brief is brief. I was born in a small town. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so like so many entrepreneurs, the first couple of years I was in business, I worked insane hours, right? And I just realized really quickly, or let me rephrase that, people were starting to sit me down nicely and tell me I was not as charming as an individual as I thought I was. 2 years without sleep, so I was getting a little bit edgy. And so to move the story along, I went from working 16 hours a day down to 6. Now that's a whole story on its own, but let me just skim over that and move forward. And so when I did that, not only did I realize, oh my gosh, how counterproductive it was when I was working all those hours, but a couple years after that, actually my husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer and I had been pulled away from the business. So
Mm.
I was gone for about 2 years. And when I returned after his passing, my existing clients, as a marketing strategist, my existing clients had no idea of my absence. And so they started to approach me really gently under the fragility of life and saying, hey, we have no idea how you could have been away. The local business community didn't know. It's just not something I wanted attention for. It just was something we kept private. We were very positive in his journey. And so they started to talk to me about that. And they asked if I could work with them under the capacity of, you know, this element of, time, team, everything I did to be able to, allow that absence. And so I started working with these individuals, and I started realizing there were so many of you guys out there where you're the last one up in your family, the first one in the morning. As my husband used to say, I was always stealing from sleep, right? In the morning or night or whatever. And so then we just started getting some amazing results, and people were very generous in saying I had changed their life. And, they just want to stop working evenings and weekends and 7 days a week. And I just don't believe that, you should have to sacrifice family time and lifestyle to have this dream. And your business should support your life instead of consume it. So that's how Win the Hour, Win the Day was born and evolved in the book and all that other stuff that snowballed from that.
Yeah, and and it is true though. Like it's amazing the way that, as you say, is when you're away with your with your husband and stuff like that, that your business still didn't have any impact on it, which was great. So it means obviously that you were obviously doing something right, and of course you've brought this on and you've really started to bring out this conversation, because I would totally agree. I think we are consumed in a way that when especially any small business or entrepreneur, they're consumed by every hour of the day is consumed by the business, when in actual fact you sort of say to yourself, well, the reason why I sort of started this business was that I don't have to be answerable to anybody, but I can choose the hours that I work. But I think we become so consumed with all of that that that's where the problem starts to arise. So I know you've wrote the book "Win the Hour, Win the Day," and it is incredible to just the whole concept around it. So I suppose we should really maybe let's delve into that and find out. Okay, so time management is obviously something that we neglect for ourselves. And when I think it should be the one thing that's probably should really, really fill us with the purpose of saying, okay, I have this amount of time or I'm going to do this. So, what are some of the things that you would say to people around this?
You know what? You said a couple of really wise things I want to unpack for a minute before I answer that question, if you don't mind. And one of the things I'd recently learned, a study had showed that 70% of entrepreneurs expect their business to take them into retirement and take care of them, and 2% do. And then the other thing is there's something like, I think it's like 83% that if they have an illness or an illness in their family, or any kind of disruption in their life, like sometimes even breaking an arm, they lose their business. So you're really right, Alan. I was very super lucky. Now, I didn't 100% know that at the time. When we we're going through this, my husband would say, like, is everything okay at the office? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I thought it was, but I wasn't really, really sure, because he saw me build that company. And that's the last thing he needed was, gut wrenching,
Mm,
taking that from me when I was doing so many other things that, sort of I used to have help with from him and all that stuff. And also, Alan, if you want to take the emotion out of this story, take it all out. I lost an income. So if I had returned to a company that failed and then I had to whip up a resume, be charming in an interview and learn a new job, that was not the headspace I was in. So it's really important. But you are so right. We did not sign up to run a business just to run ourselves into the ground, because I remembered back in what I call the dark years, those first 2 years, where one time I was working at 2 o'clock in the morning and I was thinking, I had been up since 5, and I was thinking, there are laws in the land to protect me from this. Like, people fought and died for labor laws. And here I am. I left that. And now I'm doing things that, would be, if somebody had imposed those hours, half those hours on me, I would have been like, who do you think you are? And here I was abusing myself like nobody else could. And so we do focus on Win the Hour, Win the Day. We do focus on what I call team, time, and our toolkits. And so let's start with let's start with time first, because you mentioned that. So one of the most powerful tools I think people could use, and I'm all about tools that are free or next to free, because buying expensive software and paying a lot of money and learning how to use it in 3 or 4 months and finding out that's not the solution, it just adds more chaos to chaos, right? So a
mm,
calendar is like your time bank account. And so many of us use our calendar for external appointments. Doesn't matter how much the dentist costs, how much we don't want to go, it's on our calendar. We will be there. But we don't plot our own day with our own work. And I'm not talking about every little thing you do, but I'm talking about 1 hour increments. Because what happens is there are things that you do every day that you don't even count as work, like your emails. And so what you're doing is, think about it this way, Alan. It's kind of like me saying to you, yeah, your car payment comes out every month. And you say, yeah, don't worry about it, Kris. It comes out every month. I know about that. I don't count it. Well, that money's still gone. So that's
mm.
like your calendar, these things that you do every day that you don't even have time allotted for. Then you have the misinformation of going into a day and thinking you may have 7 or 8 hours, when in fact you might only have 4. So you are set up to fail with some very funky math right off the beginning. And then you fall into what I call a rushaholic. I'm a recovering rushaholic, because I used to think I could just outrun the clock, get out of my way. I'm going to go as fast as I can. Boom, boom, boom. And that has consequences like you wouldn't believe. So
Mm.
I think the misunderstanding, you cannot measure what you cannot improve what you don't measure. And people are not using their calendar. And they're also wasting a lot of energy when they're not being purposeful with their energy. We can talk more about that if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. Is and that that the idea of the calendar is that, as you say, is we sort of just put it up, we just put it down in a sense of where we're saying, okay, well, I have to get all of these, tasks done or these jobs done or whatever. But what we forget is as you say, is it's the time that you take to read your emails in the morning, whether that be only, it could be 10 minutes or it could be, an hour, but it's still that time that you're losing out on. If you say to yourself, I'm going to get all of this done in today, and then you go at the end of the day, you go, "Ah, I didn't get half of that done," and because you spent an hour on a call, or you had some other something that happened, you forget that, and you don't put that into the equation. So I think it's like, as you say, it's being purposeful, and it's being, productive with your time, and saying, okay, I have to allow for, whether that be 2 hours for miscellaneous things that are going to come up. That is it's a really, really good point. And I think a lot of people forget about that. I know I personally do. And it's only now you're saying it, I'm sort of going, yeah, that's probably me as much as anyone else. So I think that's really, really smart. Like, just talking about that, because I think it highlights as much as anything else.
Yeah, and I think too, when you say words like productive, that's the problem is people like you, Alan, and so many of your listeners, you do get a lot of stuff done and you're probably the go-to person in your life and you get more done than anybody else. So then you just think, oh, okay, I got to figure out how to be more and more productive. And it's this race. And it's really not about being productive. It's really about being, having some strategy that you really frankly have never been taught. Because even if you went to post-secondary school and got all kinds of higher education, you had different professors giving you different work and nobody showed you how to sort of, coordinate all that, right? It's just figure it out, go as fast as you can. So one of the things I would say to you as well is understanding how the human brain works. And I know for a long time, I was reading up on these studies and stuff, and I would think, oh, that's fine. They did all these studies at Stanford or Harvard or whatever, but you don't understand how passionate I am about my business. You don't
Mm.
understand how driven I am. So somehow I felt that my brain was exempt from all this science because I was different. I mean, you guys can all raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm different. My business is different. So some things that really matter is what I would say is when you talked about reading your emails first thing in the morning, that is really, frankly, the last place you should be. Because what happens is when you dive into an email, and everybody that does this, they do it because they're fear-based. I'll make sure there's no problems, all kinds of stuff. But that speaks to another issue is first of all, you have two things that work against you all day, which is attention residue and decision fatigue. So decision fatigue, the more decisions you make, and the email box is just riddled with that because everything you open takes you in a different direction. It's like a 52 pickup of cards, right? And the other thing is called attention residue. When you leave something and you go somewhere else, if you can imagine, I've done videos this where I'll take some shaving cream and I'll spray it on the wall and then I wipe it off. And that left behind is the attention residue, because what happens is when let's say you had 5 units of attention and you go read something and then you come back to the work that you're doing, you only bring back 3 of that. Your brain sort of
Mm.
sticks over there. You don't come back with it all. And you do that a bunch of times, even in 1 hour. And you really are burning down your battery as if you have a whole bunch of apps open on your phone and it decreases your battery. So really that first hour of the day should be the things that require the most focus or attention that you want to get done. Like maybe you're doing some big project or writing a book or doing something purposeful. Anything that takes the most creation, the creativity or focus should be that first hour. So it's also about maximizing your energy. And when you have these things laid out on the calendar, to another point you made, Alan, is it's really helpful then because I remember it was a couple weeks ago, I had something happen to my computer and I had to call Apple and I'm on the phone with them and it took like 45 minutes, of course, way longer than I thought. And I didn't have that planned for my day. So what happened when I got off the phone is then I looked at my day and said, okay, what can I move? Because it's all laid out there. And I just
Mm.
moved something to another day. Where previously I just would have went into what I call hysterical mode and thought I have to make up for that time. And I would have started rushing through the day, rushing people, not presenting my best self, making poor decisions because I'm skimming over information and just try to go faster. And because I wouldn't have had those things on my calendar, then 3 days later, I would have had some, oh my gosh, I forgot that moment. I could have been eating dinner with my family or whatever. And I forgot that because everything was just go, go, go. So having things on your calendar that then you can say, oh, okay, the day has changed. Let me just move that over there versus looking at the ceiling and trying to memorize what I'm supposed to do next.
Yeah, and the great thing about that, with especially when you're doing something like that, is that you sort of say to yourself, okay, you don't get frustrated at the end of the day because you've tried to get all that work done. You've sort of said, okay, and like, my mother used to always say, tomorrow is another day, and tomorrow is another day. And if you, as you say, is if you can do something like that, it automatically it de-stresses you as much as anything else. And I think that's a part of, as you say, like all these studies that have been done, it's part of that is that you're learning and you're understanding, it's giving yourself that time and space to be able to maneuver what it is that you have to do. And I just seen, we have D. Scott Smith in, who and he comes up. He says a very good line, is Abraham Lincoln quote: "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And I thought, it's brilliant. And don't forget, guys, if you have any questions for Kris, pop them into the comments. We would love to try and answer them and do as best we can. And we say hello to Kelly, who's in here as well. So another great girl, lady. And you, Kris, you should definitely talk to Kelly. You two will get on like a house on fire. She has a radio show and everything. So yeah, brilliant stuff. And then obviously Scott is in here, and we have a few others as well popping in as well. So if you have any questions, guys, please don't hesitate to put them into the comments and tell us where you're watching them from. I know Scott is in Oregon at the moment as well. So great. Yeah. So back to where were we? Yeah, so as you say, time and schedule and your calendars and stuff like that, and giving yourself that space and headspace, I suppose, is so vitally important. Whatever about for your business, but for your well-being as well, and your own mindfulness. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
all
mean?
the best all the things that impact our life the most, inventions of mankind from the very beginning were created actually in times of rest or play. So we need to understand that this idea of rushing, going through the day actually works against us, because as entrepreneurs, our goal is to get ideas to execution. Ideas to execution. That's all what it's about. How fast can you get your ideas to execution? And so often we just get caught up in what I call the web of admin, which is why, Alan, I'm very passionate about creating your win team, your what is next team, so you can get to what is next. And we do that with a couple of things, leaning into super toolkits, which often people confuse with SOPs, standard operating procedures. But standard operating procedures are all about, covering really liability. They're not written by the end user, and they're static in nature. So what I'm passionate about is you should be in about 60% execution mode, getting those ideas to
Mm,
execution. And then that allows you to be really what you wanted to have when you started this business, or to be an entrepreneur, is to always be moving forward with the creativity and your next ambition. And it's kind of like, walking in the desert, the horizon's always moving. So I'm really super passionate that people understand that it isn't about grinding it out. It isn't about, like, if it was, you'd be exactly where you wanted to be by now. It's all that out there is misinformation. May I be harsh and just say it's a lie. It's people talking to you and making a really hero story out of ill-planned journey. And it's almost like, I read an article once, like, yes, if you suffer long and hard enough, they'll make it, a statue for you. But who wants that, right? You
mm,
don't hear about people that had it sort of organized, and that doesn't have the glory in that. So it really is about making sure that you're not a sufferpreneur, that you have a plan and a team in place that, yes, I promise you can afford, that a team that manages you instead of you managing them, so you
yeah.
can really have fun in your business, because you didn't start a business just to run a business.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and I love that idea, as is, get the team to help you as opposed to you, just because I think what happens there is because it becomes management, or it becomes the management that you sort of, okay, well, they're not doing that the way I wanted to do, and whereas you don't, okay, if you get your team around you, and a good team around you, that they will know exactly what your vision is, what your goal. I hate using the word goals. I think it's more of what your system is to get you from where you want to be. And when you get them in place, you know, they start coming to you. And we spoke about it on the podcast as well, where you were saying that they actually, people start coming, they start coming to you with ideas, and you're going, oh, we can do this.
Yes.
And yeah, and that opens up a whole new arena of phenomenal, productivity that everyone can bounce off as well. And as well, I suppose the team then also feel that they're valued as much as what you are valuing them.
Oh, so much. My big goal, and I have achieved it, is to be the dumbest person in the room at all times, right? And that means that I'm surrounded by brilliance. And see, what happens is we've all been trained in the outside corporate world. And what happens is when you're hired as an employee, or when you hire somebody, you hand them work, and then when you hand them work, you lean over and you check on it, and it becomes like a parent-child, teacher-student
Mm,
relationship.
totally.
And that just creates like a whole nother job for you, right? And you don't need that. So what you want is you want to have, I mean, imagine like instead of rowing in a boat and sweating it out and doing it on the blistering sun, and you're getting blisters in your hand and bloody knuckles, putting really like an engine on the back of that boat, and you just go, meow, phew, right? There is a way to have it set up so that the team manages you and you are constantly in creation mode. And it's so much different than, I don't even love the word delegate. That's a lateral move. Oh, I'll give them this and they can do that. You want to
Mm,
have a team around you. And I'm always about a lean team. I'm not talking 5, 10 people. I'm talking you could run a very successful, lucrative company and have a lot of free time with 3 people. But you want that team really to just move you forward, so you're constantly in creation mode, and that you're not managing them, they're taking care of you. That's success. And when I define success, to me, it's about having freedom of schedule, it's to be able to take time off. That's the difference.
yeah, and a lot of people do measure success on monetary values and stuff like
Yeah.
that. When you actually say, success is freedom, and it's having the ability to do that. And I think that's great. It's like I was listening to a podcast with Scott Stratton on it, and he says, and it's sort of when you were talking about the engine on the boat, he was sort of saying, the idea here is that you get in an elevator with your team instead of getting on and trying to get on the ladder and trying to climb over them. He says,
Mm.
in fact, you're in the elevator, you're getting there together, but you're all focusing on the one thing. And I think I thought it was, yeah, that's just so good. And the way he said that, I think it's really amazing.
Yeah, how we work with my clients, whether it's in the winner circle or private coaching, is we have it set up that we have there's super toolkits that we can show you that your team can take courses for you, and that yet you still have the information and they bring things to you, and you want them all to be, we have it set up that here's a quick example. Before Christmas, I'm not sure if I told you about this, but before Christmas, somebody reached out to me last minute. Someone had fallen through on their speaking event they had for a leadership day. So they asked me to be the keynote speaker. So it was like a 4-hour presentation. It was like 2 weeks away, and they needed something that was a little bit more specific. So I had to really start from scratch and pull my resources together. I had the materials, but it wasn't something I could just say, yeah, I've got a presentation for that. Now, we had a situation where one of my team members, Kazel, who was moving from the Philippines to Canada to go to college, and with the pandemic, she was all of a sudden given a week's notice that she was going to be moving. And I'm like, okay. And so we hired Mora. Now, here it is, 2 weeks before Christmas. I look at my calendar. I have really like 2 days I can move things around so I can write this presentation and practice it. Because you can imagine, even if you practice it twice, that's 8 hours, right? So I
Mm,
have this time. We've hired Mora. Kazel trains Mora. I have nothing to do with this whatsoever. I don't even have 2 minutes. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. I've got this 4-hour presentation on December 20th. Kazel's moving on the 17th. She's still going to work with us, but her hours will obviously have to be decreased. So I show up for our first, what we call Scrum meeting on January 4th. Mora is 90% trained. She is spectacular because we have these super toolkits in play. We didn't get derailed, not even for a moment at all.
mm,
Right. And now, even she hasn't been with us very long, let's say 2 months, we're really being more purposeful and diving into SEO rich content and learning a lot more about SEO that we've kind of skimmed over in the last years. And Maura is spearheading that. She's taking the training. She gives us enough in our little meetings to show us what I need to do with the blog. And then it's all articulated that if she graduated or moved on or anything, we have it in our super toolkits. So I'm really talking about, as entrepreneurs, you always think I have to learn it first. And then what the half of I've kind of figured out and learned, I'll give it to somebody else, where you should be the spoke in the centerpiece of a, beautiful wheel with all the spokes going out, making that wheel go faster and faster and enjoying the ride.
Yeah, amazing. And of course, we're talking here about all of these super toolkits, and where people can find all this information is on winthehourwintheday.com. It's down below. You can see it down there. But make sure you do check it out. And like, there's so much content and so many great opportunities for you there as well. So I suppose, Kris, final point and final thoughts on this would be is like, what are the benefits of, I suppose, going to the website and then obviously working with you as well?
Well, I'm fun and charming. No, I don't know.
Yes, you are. Well, you're all that on the above type.
Well, what I'm passionate about is your business should support your life, not consume it. And that all our clients tell us within the first month of working with us that they get 25 hours back a week. So I would just ask you to imagine, what would you do with that 25 extra hours a week? What time would you spend with your family? Would you start taking better care of yourself? The things that have fallen off the radar, when you got so busy, or the projects you'd want to get more passionate about. But business doesn't have to be hard. It should be fun. And this idea of, if you hear yourself saying even one time, well, once I get past this, that's the dilemma is, once I get past this, once I get past the holidays, once I get past this thing, or once we get these new clients on, or there's always this thing that you think you're going to crawl over, and then things will be different. And I'm here to tell you, when you hear that, you need to listen to yourself. In order to get different results, you have to do something different. And this toxic message that's out there, that's all about grinding it out, and the one who sweats and bleeds the most climbs the mountain the highest, that's just not the case. It works. It is 100% counterproductive. It just, how productive you are when you drag your tired butt into work in the morning, where I believe you should start the day refreshed and leave fresh. But it's like having a hangover. You're like, okay, so, I'm sitting here exhausted. How sharp is my brain? It just doesn't work that way. So yeah, I'm here to help. Message me, tell me where you are in the journey. Tell me you're a friend of Alan's and you'll become a fast friend of mine. But there definitely is an easier way.
Brilliant stuff. And how can people reach out if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, on this lovely platform, LinkedIn, check me, message me, do whatever. You can also check out free gift, GIFT from Kris, KRIS.com. We put some goodies in there recently for Alan, and they're still there, like a free audio version of my book. So you might want to check that out. And just let me know where you are in your journey, because there's so many people in isolation working late at night, just like you are, and it doesn't have to be.
Brilliant stuff. Kris, as always, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and we wish you continued success. And guys, as I said, if you want to find out more, do go to Win the Hour, Win the Day. So Kris, thanks so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Okay, I'm going to, we just say our goodbyes. We put you into green room for a minute, and let me just get rid of this overlay. So guys, there you go. What a fantastic lady, and do check it out, Kris Ward, and it is Win the Hour, Win the Day. You can find out all the information on the website as well. It has been a pleasure, as always, to have your company, and thanks to everyone for getting involved and for sharing their comments and their just join us today. And if you are watching this on the replay, make sure you put a note in and let us know that you did watch it on the replay as well. All you have to do, replay. Anyway, that is about our lot for today. So don't forget, come back soon. We shall have another episode of In Conversation with Alan coming up next week, and we have some really interesting guests over the next couple of weeks as well. So do check us out. So until the next time, as I always say, stay safe and stay well, and be social. Until next time, talk to you soon. Bye bye.